Baby found, a German Shepherd, too weak to stand. What happened next? Left. Everyone in tears. The rain was hammering down so hard that 5-year-old Ben Miller couldn't see past the car window. What he heard next changed everything. Before we continue, hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from right now. Ben pressed his small nose against the cold glass, watching his mother Emma struggle with grocery bags in the parking lot of the old Riverside factory. The place had been closed for years, but people still used the lot when the main store's parking was full. That's when he heard it, a sound so weak, so desperate, that it cut through the storm like a whisper in church. "Mommy's coming right back, sweetie," Emma had said, locking the car doors. But Ben wasn't listening anymore. His hand was already on the door handle. The whimpering came again, softer this time, like something giving up. Ben's sneakers splashed through puddles as he ran toward the sound. His Superman jacket flapped behind him, already soaking through. The noise led him behind a rusty dumpster where rainwater had formed a dirty pool. What he saw there made him freeze. A German Shepherd lay on its side, ribs pushing through matted fur like piano keys. The dog's breathing was so shallow that Ben thought it might already be dead. One eye was swollen shut. The other, a startling blue color, was half open, staring at nothing. But it was the second eye that made Ben gasp when the dog managed to open it slightly. Brown one, blue one, brown. "Hi," Ben whispered, kneeling in the mud. "Are you sleeping?" The dog's tail moved, not a wag, just a tiny twitch that said, "I hear you." Ben pulled his juice box from his pocket, apple juice, his favorite, and punctured the straw. He held it near the dog's mouth. "You must be thirsty. It's been hot all week until today." The German Shepherd's tongue barely moved, touching the sweet liquid. Its good eye, the brown one, shifted to look at Ben, really look at him, and in that moment, something passed between them. Not words, not even a feeling exactly, just recognition, like two lost things finding each other. "Ben!" Emma's scream cut through the rain. She stood 10 feet away, groceries scattered on the wet pavement, her face white with terror. "Get away from that dog right now!" "But Mommy, he's hurt." "Now, Benjamin." Ben had never heard his mother use that voice. But he didn't move. Instead, he did something that would haunt Emma for weeks afterward. He took off his Superman jacket, his birthday present, the one he wore every single day, and laid it over the dog's shivering body. "He's not scary," Ben said, his voice steady in a way that didn't match his 5 years. "He's just very, very tired." Emma grabbed Ben's arm, pulling him back, but not before others had noticed the commotion. Mrs. Patterson from the grocery store, Mr. Lou from the bank, Tommy's mom with her perfect hair now plastered to her head. They formed a circle, keeping their distance, phones already out. "That thing looks diseased," Mrs. Patterson announced, her voice carrying that special tone reserved for other people's problems. "Someone call animal control." "Look at those scars," Mr. Liu added, pointing with his umbrella. "That's a fighting dog. Probably dumped here after it lost." "It could have rabies," Tommy's mom said, pulling her son back even though he was nowhere near the dog. "These strays are dangerous. My husband says—" "He's not dangerous!" Ben's voice cracked, tears mixed with rain on his cheeks. "Look at him. He can't even stand up." The German Shepherd's blue eye found Ben again. The boy could swear he saw gratitude there, or maybe just surprise that someone, anyone, was defending him. "Ma'am, you need to control your child," Mrs. Patterson said to Emma, her tone dripping with judgment. "This is exactly how children get mauled." Emma's hands were shaking as she held Ben. Not from fear of the dog, she realized, but from the way her son was looking at her, like she was about to fail the most important test of her life. "The pound will put it down anyway," Mr. Liu said, already dialing on his phone. "Better than letting it suffer." That's when the dog did something that made everyone step back. It lifted its head, clearly using every ounce of strength left, and looked directly at Ben. Then it tried to crawl forward, not toward the crowd, toward the little boy who'd given him his jacket. The dog made it maybe 6 inches before collapsing again. But its eyes never left Ben's face. "See," Ben whispered, "he's trying to say thank you." Animal control will be here in 30 minutes, Mistress Liu announced, closing his phone. Everyone should clear the area. 30 minutes? Ben's voice rose to a panic. But it's raining. He'll die in 30 minutes. That's not our problem, Mrs. Patterson said, but something in her voice wavered when she saw Ben's face. It is my problem, Ben shouted, surprising everyone, including himself. I found him. That makes him my responsibility. Emma knelt beside her son, rain streaming down both their faces. Ben, honey, we can't. You always say we should help people who need help, Ben interrupted. You said that's what good people do. This is different. Why? Because he's a dog? Because he's ugly now? Because everyone else is scared? The crowd had grown quiet. Even the rain seemed to soften, as if listening to the little boy's words. That's when a voice cut through the silence. Everyone step back. Let me through. An elderly man pushed through the crowd, carrying a medical bag. He wore a faded jacket that said, Doctor, Marcus Webb, Veterinary Services on the back. His eyes were kind but tired, like someone who'd seen too much sadness. Dr. Webb, Emma said with relief. Can you... But the doctor was already kneeling beside the dog, his hands, moving with practiced efficiency. He pulled out a penlight, checked the dog's eyes, felt along its ribs. His expression grew darker with each passing second. This animal is severely malnourished, he said quietly. Dehydrated. These wounds. He paused, his fingers finding something on the dog's ear. Dear God. What? Ben asked, still clutching his mother's hand. Dr. Webb looked up, his face grave. This dog has a military tattoo. This is a war dog, the crowd murmured. A war dog? Here? How? The veterinarian's fingers continued their examination. Multiple untreated wounds. Some are old, months, maybe years. Others are fresh. This dog has been through hell. Can you save him? Ben asked, his voice small but determined. Dr. Webb met the boy's eyes. Something in that gaze, the pure, desperate hope, made him pause. I can try, but animal control? Please, Ben said. I'll give up all my birthday presents. My Christmas presents, too. Forever. Just please help him. Emma's heart broke. Ben's 6th birthday was in 2 weeks. He'd been talking about his party for months. Dr. Webb stood slowly, pulling out his phone. He turned away from the crowd, but Ben heard him say quietly, I found him. Yes, the one from Afghanistan, Sector 7. You need to see this. The crowd was growing restless. More people had gathered, some taking pictures, others live streaming. The dog hadn't moved except for that labored breathing. Who were you calling? Emma asked. Dr. Webb's eyes were distant, focused on something beyond the parking lot. Someone who's been looking for this dog for a very long time. He paused, then looked at Ben. Son, what made you stop for him? Ben thought about it. I heard him crying, but it wasn't regular crying. It was like when I had nightmares after Daddy left, when you're so sad you can't even be loud about it anymore. Emma's breath caught. Ben never talked about his father leaving. Never. The dog's brown eye opened again, finding Ben. Its tail moved, definitely a wag this time, though barely visible. He likes you, Doctor, Webb said softly. That's unusual. War dogs don't usually trust quickly, not after what they've been through. What did he go through? Ben asked. Things no living creature should have to, the doctor replied. But right now, we need to move him. The rain is making his condition worse. I'll help, Ben said immediately. Ben, no, Emma started, but Doctor. Webb held up a hand. Ma'am, I've been a vet for 40 years. I've seen aggressive dogs, scared dogs, dangerous dogs. This isn't any of those. This is a dog that's given up. And your son? He looked at Ben with something like wonder. Your son just gave him a reason not to. Animal control will be here in 15 minutes, Mr. Liu reminded them. Then we have 14 minutes to save a hero, Doctor, Webb said, his voice carrying an authority that made everyone step back. This dog has a military service tattoo, serial number K9-4471. That means he served our country, and we're going to treat him with the respect he deserves. Ben watched as Dr. Webb returned to his van, bringing back a special stretcher. The doctor's hands were gentle but efficient as he prepared to move the dog. "Can I help?" Ben asked again. "You already are, Doctor," Webb said. "Keep talking to him. Let him know he's safe." Ben knelt back down, ignoring the mud soaking through his jeans. "Hey, boy, the nice doctor is going to help you. We're going to get you somewhere warm and dry." The dog's eyes tracked to Ben's face. When the boy reached out slowly, carefully, the dog didn't flinch. Ben's small hand touched the matted fur, feeling the prominent ribs beneath. "You're so skinny," Ben whispered. "When did you eat last?" The dog's breathing changed, deeper, like he was trying to smell Ben's scent, memorize it. "We need to move now, Doctor," Webb said. "Ben, I need you to walk beside him. Keep your hand where he can see it. Can you do that?" Ben nodded solemnly. As they lifted the stretcher, the dog whimpered, the first real sound he'd made. His eyes went wild with panic. "It's okay," Ben said quickly. "I'm right here. See, I'm not leaving." The German Shepherd's eyes found Ben again. The panic slowly faded. They were halfway to the van when a black sedan pulled into the parking lot, driving too fast, splashing water everywhere. It stopped abruptly, and a man in a suit got out, his face scanning the crowd until it landed on the dog. "Stop," he commanded, his voice cold. "That's my property." Dr. Webb froze. "Excuse me?" The man pulled out a badge. "Derek Coleman, Military Contractor Logistics. That dog is classified military property. I'll be taking him now." "He's dying, Doctor," Webb said flatly. "He needs immediate medical attention." "That's not your concern," Coleman replied, moving toward the stretcher. That's when Ben did something no one expected. He threw himself over the dog's body, covering as much of the animal as his small frame could manage. "No!" he shouted. "You can't take him! He's hurt!" Coleman's expression darkened. "Kid, move! Now! You're the one who hurt him, aren't you?" Ben's voice was accusing, fierce. "That's why he's so scared." The accusation hung in the air like thunder. Coleman's face went from dark to dangerous. "That's a serious accusation, little boy," he said quietly. "You should be careful what you say." Emma stepped forward, maternal instinct overriding fear. "Are you threatening my son?" The crowd, which had been backing away, suddenly pressed closer. Phones were raised, recording. Coleman noticed the cameras and his demeanor shifted. "I'm simply trying to recover military property. This dog was reported missing from a transport vehicle 2 weeks ago." "Then why is he starving?" Ben demanded. "Why is he hurt? Why did someone dump him here like garbage?" Dr. Webb was studying Coleman carefully. "If this is your dog, you'll have documentation. Proof of custody." "Of course," Coleman said smoothly. "It's in my vehicle." He walked back to the sedan, and Ben felt the dog tense beneath him. The animal was trembling now, and not from cold. "He's scared of that man," Ben whispered to his mother. "Really scared." Dr. Webb leaned close to Emma. "Something's not right. War dogs are never transported alone. Never. And the condition this animal is in." He shook his head. "This isn't neglect. This is abuse." Coleman returned with a folder, pulling out official-looking papers. "Transfer order. See? Dog K 9-4471. Designated for retirement processing." "Retirement processing?" Dr. Webb's voice was sharp. "That's not a real designation. I worked with military K-9 units for 20 years. Retirement processing isn't a thing." Coleman's jaw tightened. "Perhaps civilian contractors aren't familiar with updated protocols." "Perhaps, Doctor," Webb said slowly. "Someone's been stealing war dogs and selling them." The accusation landed like a bomb. Coleman stepped forward aggressively, but stopped when several people in the crowd moved closer, protective of the old veterinarian. "That's slander," Coleman said. "I could sue you." "Then do it, Doctor," Webb replied calmly. "But first, explain why this dog, if he's been in your care, is dying of starvation." The sound of sirens cut through the tension, but it wasn't animal control. It was police cars, 3 of them pulling into the parking lot with purpose. Coleman's face went pale. He looked at his sedan, clearly calculating his chances. "Don't even think about it, Doctor," Webb said. "I called them the moment I saw the military tattoo. You see, Mr. Coleman, I may be old, but I'm not stupid, and I know exactly who this dog is. You don't know anything, Coleman snarled. I know his name isn't just K9-4471, Dr. Webb said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. His name is Ranger. And he's not just any war dog, he's the war dog. Medal of Honor recipient, saved 14 soldiers in Afghanistan, hero of the Battle of Korengal Valley. The crowd gasped. Several veterans in the group stood straighter, their expressions shifting from curiosity to anger. Ranger, one of them said. The Ranger? The dog who detected the IED that would have killed an entire platoon. Dr. Webb nodded. The very same, and Mr. Coleman here seems to have misplaced him. The police officers had exited their vehicles, hands on their weapons, approaching carefully. Dr. Webb, the lead officer called. You reported a stolen military dog? I did, the veterinarian replied. And I believe we found both the dog and the thief. Coleman backed toward his sedan. This is a misunderstanding. I have paperwork, forged paperwork, a new voice said. Everyone turned. A man in full military uniform was walking toward them, his bearing rigid with controlled fury. Captain James Torres, according to his name tag. His face bore scars from an old injury, and his eyes were fixed on the dog. Ranger, he said softly, his voice breaking. Jesus Christ, is that really you? The dog's head lifted slightly at the voice. His tail moved, more than a twitch this time. Captain Torres' face transformed from hope to rage as he took in the dog's condition. What did they do to you, boy? Then he turned to Coleman, and everyone stepped back from the fury in his expression. You son of a bitch, Torres said quietly. You told me he was dead. I don't know what you're talking about, Coleman said, but his voice shook. 3 months ago, you were supposed to transport Ranger to his retirement home, to Sergeant Chen's family. You reported him killed in a vehicle accident. Torres stepped closer. You showed me pictures of a dead German shepherd. That was Ranger. That's funny, Torres interrupted, because Ranger is lying right there, dying but not dead. So either you lied then, or you're lying now. Ben had been quiet during this exchange, but now he spoke up. He's a hero? Torres looked down at the boy, still protecting the dog with his small body. The biggest hero I know, son. He saved my life. He pulled up his sleeve, showing extensive scarring. IED explosion. Ranger detected it, but I was too close. He dragged me 40 feet to safety while taking shrapnel himself. And this man hurt him? Ben's voice was small but furious. It looks that way, Torres said, but we're going to fix that. Aren't we, Mr. Coleman? Coleman made his move then, rushing for his sedan. But he'd miscalculated. The crowd, full of veterans and ordinary people who'd heard enough, closed in. He didn't make it 3 steps before being tackled by 2 men who'd served in Iraq. The police moved in, cuffs ready. As they arrested Coleman, he shouted, You don't understand. It wasn't just me. There's a whole network. They'll come for the dog. Let them try, Torres said grimly. Then he knelt beside Ranger, his hand gentle on the dog's head. Hey, boy. Remember me? We had some times, didn't we? Ranger's tail wagged weakly. His brown eye focused on Torres's face with what could only be described as joy. We need to get him to my clinic immediately, Doctor, Webb said. He's going into shock. As they loaded Ranger into the van, Ben refused to let go of the dog's paw. I'm coming with him. Emma started to protest, but Torres put a hand on her shoulder. Ma'am, that dog hasn't responded to anyone in months, according to what I've been investigating. But he responds to your son. We might need that. Ben found him, Emma said softly. Behind the dumpster. Then Ben saved his life, Torres replied. Ranger was probably hours from death. In the van, Ben kept talking to Ranger, his voice steady and calm. You're going to be okay now. The bad man is gone. You're safe. Ranger's eyes never left Ben's face. Even as Dr. Webb inserted an IV, even as the van raced through the streets, the dog kept watching the little boy who'd covered him with a Superman jacket. Why do you think he trusts me? Ben asked Dr. Webb. The old veterinarian smiled sadly. Sometimes, when we've been hurt so badly we can't trust anymore, it takes innocence to remind us that goodness still exists. You didn't see a dangerous dog or a problem or damaged goods. You just saw someone who needed help. That's what anyone would do, Ben said. No, son, doctor, Webb replied, looking at the crowd that had gathered and the man who'd been arrested. It's really not. The clinic was only 10 minutes away, but it felt like hours. Ranger's breathing was becoming more labored. His eyes started to close. No, Ben said firmly. You stay awake. That's an order. Torres looked at the boy in amazement. You sound like a handler. What's a handler? Ben asked. A partner, someone who works with military dogs, someone they trust completely. Then I'm his handler now, Ben said, with the certainty only a 5-year-old could have. Until he's better. They pulled into the clinic's emergency entrance. Dr. Webb and his staff were ready, having called ahead. As they wheeled Ranger in, the dog went into cardiac arrest. He's crashing, Dr. Webb shouted. Get the paddles! No! Ben screamed, trying to follow, but Emma held him back. They could see through the window as the medical team worked frantically. The heart monitor showed a flat line. Dr. Webb was performing CPR on the dog's chest. Ben broke free from his mother and ran to the window, pressing his hands against the glass. Ranger, you can't die! You're a hero! Heroes don't die! Inside, Dr. Webb heard the boy's voice. So did Ranger. The heart monitor beeped, once, twice, then a steady rhythm. We got him back, Doctor, Webb announced, and Ben collapsed against his mother, sobbing with relief. Captain Torres was on his phone, his voice urgent. Yes, sir. We found Ranger. Coleman's in custody, but he mentioned a network. We need protection for the dog and the family who found him. He paused. Yes, the boy. 5 years old. You're not going to believe this, but Ranger responds to him like a handler. Over the next 3 hours, Ben refused to leave the clinic. Emma tried to convince him to go home, to eat something, to rest. But Ben had made a promise to himself. He wouldn't leave Ranger alone again. Dr. Webb emerged periodically with updates. Ranger was stable, but critical. Severe malnutrition had damaged his organs. He had 3 broken ribs, likely from being kicked. Infected wounds that were weeks old. Signs of being forced to fight. Defensive wounds on his legs and face. But he's fighting, Doctor, Webb said. Harder than any dog I've seen. It's like he has something to live for now. He does, Ben said simply. Me. Captain Torres had been making calls, pulling strings, demanding answers. What he learned made him sick. Coleman was part of a ring that stole military dogs and sold them to dog-fighting operations or private security companies overseas. Ranger had escaped from a fighting ring 2 weeks ago and had been surviving on the streets since then. They made him fight? Ben asked, his young mind trying to process such cruelty. They tried, Torres said, but from what I'm learning, Ranger refused. That's why he was in such bad shape. He wouldn't fight other dogs. They beat him for it, starved him, but he never broke. Because he's good, Ben said. He knows he's supposed to protect, not hurt. Torres looked at the little boy with newfound respect. That's exactly right. As night fell, Doctor, Webb finally let Ben into the recovery room. Ranger was lying on a heated bed, IVs in his legs, monitors tracking his vital signs. He looked small and fragile, nothing like the hero everyone said he was. But when Ben entered, Ranger's eyes opened. His tail moved slightly. Hi, hero, Ben whispered, sitting carefully beside the bed. I brought you something. He pulled out a worn stuffed dog from his backpack. This is Buddy. He's been my best friend since I was 3. He helps with nightmares and scary things. I thought maybe you could borrow him. Ben placed the stuffed animal next to Ranger. The war dog sniffed it once, then rested his head against it. See? Buddy will keep you safe while you sleep, Ben said. And I'll be right here. Emma watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Her son, her shy, quiet son, who still slept with a nightlight, was comforting a war hero. Mrs. Miller? Captain Torres appeared beside her. I need to talk to you about something important. They stepped into the hallway, but Emma kept the door cracked so she could see Ben. Coleman's confession revealed something disturbing, Torres said quietly. The network he's part of, they have other stolen military dogs, and they're not going to be happy about losing Ranger. Are you saying we're in danger? I'm saying Ranger is valuable to them, not just as a fighting dog, but for what he knows. Military dogs are trained to detect specific scents, follow complex commands, track targets. In the wrong hands, that training could be used for criminal purposes. Emma's blood went cold. They'll come for him. Probably. Which is why I'm assigning protection to your family and this clinic. My family? But we just found him. Ma'am, your son just became the most important person in Ranger's recovery. That dog hasn't trusted anyone since he was taken. But he trusts Ben. Without that trust, Ranger might give up. And we need him to survive, not just because he's a hero, but because he can help us find the other stolen dogs. Emma looked through the crack in the door. Ben was reading to Ranger from one of his picture books, something about a brave knight and a dragon who became friends. "This is insane," she muttered. "Yes," Torres agreed. "But sometimes the most important things happen in the most insane ways." That's when they heard Ben's voice rise in excitement. "Mom! Captain! Come quick!" They rushed in to find Ranger had lifted his head completely. His eyes focused on something Ben was holding, his phone, showing a video Emma had taken of Ben at his last birthday party. "He likes the singing," Ben explained. "Watch." On the screen, Ben and his classmates were singing "Happy Birthday." Ranger's tail was wagging, actually wagging with something like happiness. "Music," Torres said in wonder. "We used to play music in the barracks." Ranger loved it. He'd howl along sometimes. "Can you sing to him?" Ben asked Torres. The captain looked embarrassed. "I don't really sing." "Please?" Ben's eyes were huge and pleading. Torres cleared his throat, then began softly singing an old military cadence. Ranger's ears perked up. His tail wagged harder, and then, so quietly they almost missed it, he made a sound, a soft, contented whine. "He remembers," Torres said, his voice thick with emotion. Dr. Webb checked the monitors. "His heart rate is improving. Blood pressure stabilizing. This is remarkable." "It's not remarkable," Ben said matter-of-factly. "It's love. Love fixes everything." The adults exchanged glances over his head. If only it were that simple. But looking at Ranger, responding to a 5-year-old's pure affection and a soldier's familiar voice, maybe it was. "Ben," Dr. Webb said gently, "Ranger is going to need weeks of recovery, maybe months, and even then—" "I'll be here," Ben interrupted. "Every day. I already asked Mom to call my teacher. I can do my homework here." "Ben, sweetie, we can't," Emma started. "Mom, he was alone for so long. He was hurt and scared and no one helped him. I can't let him be alone again. But the people who hurt him, they're bad people," Ben said simply. "But there are more good people than bad. Look at everyone who helped today. Dr. Webb, Captain Torres, all those people who stopped the bad man from running. Good people win if they stick together." Captain Torres knelt beside Ben. "You're right, son. But these bad people might come back. They might try to take Ranger again." Ben's jaw set in a way that made him look older than his 5 years. "Then we stop them. All of us. Together." "It could be dangerous," Torres warned. Ben looked at Ranger, then back at the captain. He was in danger every day in the war, right? But he still saved people. He still did the right thing. He paused, then added, "I want to be brave like him." "You already are," Torres said softly. That night, as Emma finally convinced Ben to rest on the small couch in the recovery room, none of them knew that Derek Coleman had already made a phone call from jail, or that 3 states away, dangerous people were making plans, or that Ranger's story was about to become much bigger than any of them imagined. But for now, in this moment, a little boy slept near a war hero dog, both of them finding peace in each other's presence. Ben's hand rested on the edge of Ranger's bed, and sometime during the night, Ranger moved his paw to touch Ben's fingers. It was such a small gesture, but it was also everything, a promise, a bond, the beginning of something that would change not just their lives, but the lives of dozens of other stolen dogs and the people who loved them. Outside, the rain had stopped. The first stars were appearing through the breaking clouds. And in a veterinary clinic in a small town, 2 broken hearts began the slow, beautiful process of healing each other. The morning came too soon, bringing with it a truth Ben hadn't expected. Ranger couldn't move his back legs. "It's temporary paralysis, doctor," Webb explained, his voice gentle but honest. "The malnutrition and trauma have affected his nervous system. He might walk again, but..." "But what?" Ben demanded, his small hands gripping the edge of Ranger's bed. "But he might not. We just don't know yet." Ben looked at Ranger, who was awake now, those mismatched eyes, one blue, one brown, watching everything with an alertness that hadn't been there yesterday. "You'll walk again," Ben told him firmly. "Heroes always get back up." Captain Torres arrived early, carrying a laptop and a thick folder. His face was grim. "We have a problem." Emma's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Coleman made bail last night. Anonymous donor posted $1 million. $1 million? Emma's voice cracked. "For a dog thief?" "This is bigger than dog theft," Torres said, opening his laptop. "Last night, military intelligence decoded Coleman's phone. He wasn't just stealing dogs. He was selling them to terrorist cells overseas. Dogs trained to detect bombs were being retrained to plant them." The room went silent except for the steady beep of Ranger's heart monitor. "Ranger knows something," Torres continued. "Coleman had him for 3 months before he escaped. In that time, Ranger would have been exposed to scents, locations, maybe even people that could help us break this entire network. So, they'll definitely come for him," Emma said, her arms instinctively wrapping around Ben. "They'll try." Torres looked at Ranger. "But first, we need to figure out what Ranger knows." Ben had been quiet, but now he spoke up. "How do you ask a dog what he knows?" Torres pulled out a series of photographs. "We show him pictures, play him sounds, see what he reacts to." For the next hour, they went through dozens of images, buildings, faces, vehicles. Ranger remained calm through most of it, occasionally tilting his head or sniffing with mild interest. Then Torres showed him a picture of a warehouse on the outskirts of town. Ranger's entire body went rigid. A low growl rumbled from his chest. His lips pulled back, showing teeth. "That's it," Torres said. "That's where they kept him. The old Riverside shipping warehouse." Dr. Webb recognized it. "That place has been abandoned for years." "Not as abandoned as we thought," Torres replied, already texting his team. Ben noticed something the adults missed. Ranger wasn't just reacting to the photo. He was looking at the door, his ears perked, his nose working. "Someone's coming," Ben whispered. Torres moved to the window just as a white van pulled into the clinic's parking lot. Not the animal control van. Something unmarked, windowless. "Everyone stay calm," Torres said, his hand moving to his service weapon. "Emma, take Ben to the back room." "I'm not leaving, Ranger," Ben said. "Ben, please." The clinic's front door chimed. Footsteps, multiple sets. Dr. Webb stepped out to meet whoever had arrived, his voice carrying back to them. "We're closed. Emergency cases only." "We're here for the dog," a woman's voice, cold and professional. "We have a court order." Torres stepped into the hallway. "What court order?" The woman was tall, dressed in an expensive suit, flanked by 2 large men who looked like private security. She held up a document. "Judge Morrison signed it this morning. The dog is evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. It needs to be transferred to a secure facility. I'm Captain James Torres, military police. This dog is already under military protection." The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Captain, I'm sure you think you're doing the right thing. But this is above your pay grade. National security is at stake." "Who's national security?" Torres challenged. "Someone's been making phone calls," the woman said, ignoring his question. "Important people are concerned about this situation. The dog comes with us. Now." Ben had heard enough. He slipped past his mother's reaching hands and ran into the hallway. "You can't take him. He's sick." The woman looked down at Ben with the same cold smile. "You must be the boy from the news footage. How sweet. But this isn't a Disney movie, child. This is the real world." "In the real world," Ben said, his voice steady despite his fear, "you need actual proof that you're really FBI or CIA or whatever you're pretending to be." The woman's smile faltered. One of her security guards stepped forward. "Kid needs to learn some manners." That's when Ranger did something extraordinary. Despite his paralysis, despite the pain it must have caused, he dragged himself off the bed using just his front legs. The IVs tore from his legs, blood spotting the white floor. He pulled himself into the hallway and positioned himself between Ben and the threatening man. His growl was different this time, deeper, more dangerous. This wasn't a warning. This was a promise. "Ranger, no!" Dr. Webb rushed to the dog. "You'll hurt yourself worse." But Ranger held his position, his body trembling with effort, his eyes locked on the security guard. "Interesting," the woman said. "The dog can barely move, but it still tries to protect the child. That kind of loyalty could be useful. Or dangerous," Torres said. "To people like you." The woman's phone rang. She answered it, her face going pale as she listened. "Understood." She hung up and looked at her security team. "We're leaving." "Just like that?" Torres asked, suspicious. "For now." She looked at Ben. "You're a brave little boy. But bravery won't protect you from what's coming." After they left, Torres immediately called his commander. The conversation was short and disturbing. "That woman doesn't exist in any federal database. The court order is fake. Judge Morrison never signed anything." "So who were they?" Emma asked, holding Ben close. "Coleman's employers, probably. Testing our defenses, seeing how hard it would be to take Ranger. Dr. Webb was examining Ranger, who had collapsed after his heroic effort. He's torn his sutures, set back his recovery by weeks, maybe months. But he protected me," Ben said, kneeling beside Ranger, "even though it hurt him." "That's what partners do," Torres said softly. That afternoon, while Ranger slept off the pain medication, Ben made a decision. He pulled out his notebook, the one he used for school, and started writing. Not words exactly. He was only 5 and still learning. But he drew pictures, the warehouse from the photo, the mean woman, the van. "What are you doing?" Emma asked. "Making a map," Ben said, "of all the bad things, so we can fix them." Torres looked at the child's drawings and saw something that made him pause. "Ben, this symbol you drew on the van, where did you see that?" Ben pointed to the security guard's jacket. "It was really small, right here." He pointed to where a lapel pin would be. Torres photographed Ben's drawing and sent it to military intelligence. Within minutes, his phone rang. That symbol belongs to a private military company called Blackwater Securities. They've been suspected of trafficking military assets for years. "So now we know who we're fighting," Emma said. "Mom?" Ben looked up from his drawing. "Are we going to be okay?" Emma wanted to lie, to promise everything would be fine, but looking at her son's earnest face, she knew he deserved the truth. "I don't know, baby, but we're going to try." That night, they moved Ranger to a more secure room in the clinic's basement. It had been used for quarantine cases with reinforced doors and windows. Ben insisted on staying with him. "I'll be fine, Mom. Ranger needs me." As the hours passed, Ben talked to Ranger about everything and nothing, about school, about his favorite cartoon, about how his dad left when he was 3 and never came back. "But that's okay," Ben said, stroking Ranger's fur, "because now I have you. And you won't leave, will you?" Ranger's tail thumped once against the bed. Around midnight, Ben woke to find Ranger struggling to stand again. "No, boy. You need to rest." But Ranger kept trying, his eyes fixed on something in the corner of the room. Ben followed his gaze and felt his blood turn cold. There was a small red light blinking in the air vent. A camera. Ben didn't scream, didn't run for help. Instead, he did something that would later amaze the adults. He pretended he hadn't seen it. He yawned, stretched, and casually walked to the corner where his backpack sat. He pulled out a piece of paper and wrote in big, shaky letters, "Camera in vent, bad people watching." He held it up behind his back where the camera couldn't see, hoping someone would notice on the security monitors. Within minutes, Torres appeared in the doorway, moving casually. He saw Ben's note and nodded slightly. Then, loud enough for any listening devices to hear, he said, "Ben, your mom wants you to come upstairs for a snack. But, Ranger, we'll be fine. Come on." They left the room, and Torres whispered urgently into his radio. "We've been compromised. They're watching us." The next hour was controlled chaos. A bomb squad swept the building, finding 3 more cameras and 2 listening devices. All had been planted in the last 24 hours. "How?" Emma demanded. "How did they get in?" The answer came from security footage. During the visit from the fake federal agents, one of the security guards had disappeared for 3 minutes. 3 minutes was all it took. "They know everything," Torres said grimly. "Our routines, our defenses, everything we've discussed." "So we change everything," Ben said simply. The adults looked at him. "In my games, when the bad guys know your plan, you make a new plan. A secret one. Torres smiled despite the situation. You're right. We need to go dark. No phones, no computers, nothing they can track or hack. But first, Doctor, Webb said, we use their surveillance against them. The plan was simple but clever. They would stage conversations for the cameras, making it seem like Ranger was being transferred to a military facility the next morning. They'd even fake the paperwork, the phone calls, everything. But in reality, they had a different plan. Where will we really take him? Emma asked. Ben raised his hand like he was in school. I know a place. My friend Tommy's grandpa has a farm outside town. He was in the army. He has a big barn and lots of land and dogs already. Torres considered it. That could work. Rural, defensible, off the grid. But will Tommy's grandfather agree? Emma asked. Ben grinned. He loves dogs. And he really loves army dogs. He has pictures of them all over his house. The next morning, they put their plan into action. A military convoy arrived at the clinic with great fanfare. Soldiers, official vehicles, even a helicopter circling overhead. The whole town came out to watch as a stretcher was loaded into an armored vehicle, but the stretcher carried sandbags covered with a blanket. Ranger was already gone, transported in the middle of the night in Doctor Webb's personal car, with Ben lying in the back seat to keep him calm. The farm was perfect. 40 acres of rolling hills, a sturdy barn converted into a makeshift medical facility, and Tommy's grandfather, Walter Chen, a 75-year-old Korean War veteran who took one look at Ranger and said, "This dog's seen some shit. He can stay as long as he needs." For 3 days, everything was quiet. Ranger grew stronger. Ben spent every moment with him, and slowly, miraculously feeling began. Returning to Ranger's back legs. Not much, just tiny movements, but enough to give them hope. Walter Chen proved to be exactly what they needed. He'd trained dogs in the army and knew how to help Ranger rebuild muscle memory. It's not just physical, he told Ben. It's mental. The dog has to believe he can walk again. How do we make him believe? Ben asked. Walter smiled. We show him what he's fighting for. He brought out his own dog, an elderly golden retriever named Rosie. She was gentle and patient, and when she approached Ranger, something sparked in the German shepherd's eyes. He tried harder to move, to sniff her, to be a normal dog again. See? Walter said. Sometimes we fight harder for others than ourselves. But the peace couldn't last. On the 4th night, Ben woke to Ranger's warning growl, not the camera growl or the stranger growl. This was different, urgent. Ben crept to the window and saw shapes moving through the darkness, multiple figures spreading out to surround the barn. He grabbed the emergency phone Torres had given him, a simple burner phone with one number programmed, but before he could dial, the barn door exploded inward. Coleman stood there, no longer in his suit, but in tactical gear. Behind him were 6 men, all armed. "Hello, little boy," Coleman said. "Did you really think you could hide from us?" Ben stood in front of Ranger's bed, his small body shaking, but his voice firm. "You can't have him." "Oh, I'm not here to take him," Coleman said. "I'm here to put him down. He knows too much, saw too much, and a dead hero is better than a living witness." That's when Walter Chen stepped out of the shadows, holding an old but well-maintained rifle. 6 men to kill 1 dog and threaten a child? You boys must be real proud. Coleman laughed. "Old man, you're outnumbered and outgunned." "Maybe," Walter said, "but I've got something you don't." "What's that?" Walter smiled. "Friends." The barn suddenly flooded with light. Outside, truck engines roared to life. Veterans, dozens of them, emerged from hidden positions around the property. Walter had called them the moment the security sensors he'd installed were triggered. "You didn't think I'd protect a war hero with just good intentions, did you?" Walter asked. Coleman's men looked nervous now. They'd expected an easy target, not an army of veterans ready to fight. But Coleman himself just smiled. "You think this changes anything? I've got judges, cops, politicians in my pocket. Even if you stop me tonight, I'll be out tomorrow, and I'll keep coming." "No," a new voice said. "You won't." Captain Torres entered the barn, but he wasn't alone. With him were federal agents, real ones this time, and a woman in a military uniform covered in medals. "General Patricia Hayes," she introduced herself. "And Mr. Coleman, you're under arrest for treason." "Treason?" Coleman sputtered. For some dogs? For selling military assets to enemies of the United States? General Hayes said. Those dogs you stole and sold? 3 of them were used in terrorist attacks. American soldiers died because of you. Coleman's face went white. His men dropped their weapons, knowing they were finished. As they were arrested, Coleman looked at Ben with pure hatred. This isn't over, kid. I have friends. They'll find you. Ben didn't flinch. Let them come. Ranger and I will be ready. After Coleman was taken away, General Hayes knelt beside Ranger's bed. Hello, soldier, she said softly. I've been looking for you. Ranger's tail wagged, recognizing the authority in her voice. This dog, she told Ben, saved my son's life in Afghanistan. My son was the one who trained him. Where is your son now? Ben asked. The general's face grew sad. He didn't make it home, but he made me promise to take care of Ranger if anything happened to him. But Ranger's my friend now, Ben said, panic creeping into his voice. I know, General Hayes said gently, and I can see he loves you. That's why I have a proposition. She explained that Ranger could be officially retired with full honors, with Ben's family as his official caretakers. But in return, they would help with something important. There are 12 more stolen dogs out there, she said. Ranger knows their scents. With training, he could help us find them. But he can't walk, Ben pointed out. Not yet, General Hayes agreed. But with the right therapy, the right motivation, she looked at Ben. And the right partner, anything is possible. Ben looked at Ranger, who was watching him with those mismatched eyes. What do you think, boy? Want to be heroes together? Ranger's response was to drag himself forward and rest his head on Ben's lap. I think that's a yes, Walter Chen said with a grin. Over the next month, something miraculous happened. With professional physical therapy funded by the military, Ranger began to walk again. First just a few steps, then across the room, then around the barn. Ben was there for every moment, cheering him on, refusing to let him give up. You're not just healing his body, the therapist told Emma. That little boy is healing his spirit. The media had gotten hold of the story. 5-year-old boy saves war hero dog became national news. Donations poured in from across the country. Veterans offered to help with security. A famous dog food company offered lifetime free food for Ranger. But Ben didn't care about any of that. All he cared about was Ranger getting better. One morning, 6 weeks after the barn confrontation, Ben woke to find Ranger standing by his bed, not lying down, not struggling, standing tall and proud like the soldier he was. Mom! Ben screamed. Mom, come quick! Emma rushed in to find Ben hugging Ranger, both of them crying, Ben with joy, Ranger with what could only be described as relief. He did it, Ben whispered. He really did it. But their celebration was interrupted by Captain Torres arriving with urgent news. We've found one of the stolen dogs. She's in bad shape, worse than Ranger was, and she won't let anyone near her. Where? Ben asked. Fighting ring in the next state. We raided it last night, rescued 15 dogs, but this one, she's military, and she's terrified. Ben looked at Ranger. We have to help her. Ben, it could be dangerous, Emma started. Mom, Ranger was dangerous when I found him, remember? Everyone said to stay away, but sometimes the scariest things are just scared. General Hayes, who had been coordinating the rescue efforts, looked at the small boy with growing respect. You really understand them, don't you? I understand being scared, Ben said simply. My dad left us. Kids at school used to make fun of me for not having a dad. I know what it's like to not trust anyone. But you trust now, Emma said softly. Because someone showed me I could, Ben replied, looking at Ranger. He taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means helping anyway. The trip to see the rescued dog took 3 hours. Ben insisted on riding in the back with Ranger, who was wearing his new service vest that said Retired Hero on one side and Ben's partner on the other. The facility where they were keeping the rescued dogs was heartbreaking. Rows of cages filled with traumatized animals. But in the far corner, separated from the others, was a Belgian Malinois who wouldn't stop shaking. Her name is Liberty, Captain Torres said. She was handler for Sergeant Mike Rodriguez. He was killed in an IED explosion that she detected but couldn't prevent in time. She blames herself, Ben said, understanding immediately. Dogs don't, one of the workers started to say. Yes, they do, Ben interrupted. Ranger blamed himself for not saving everyone. I could see it in his eyes. Ben approached Liberty's cage slowly, but instead of focusing on her, he sat down with his back to her and started talking to Ranger. Remember when you were scared? He said to Ranger, loud enough for Liberty to hear. Remember when you thought no one would ever love you again? But you were wrong. You're so loved now. Everyone loves you. Ranger whined softly, nuzzling Ben's cheek. This is Liberty, Ben continued, still not looking at her. She's scared like you were. She thinks she failed, but she didn't fail. She's a hero, just like you. Behind him, Liberty had stopped shaking. She was listening. Maybe you could show her it gets better? Ben asked Ranger. Ranger stood up and walked to Liberty's cage. The two dogs looked at each other, and something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, shared trauma, and the possibility of healing. Liberty took a tentative step forward, then another. Soon she was at the cage door, her nose touching Ranger's through the bars. Can we open it? Ben asked. It might not be safe, the worker warned, but General Hayes nodded. Do it. The moment the cage opened, Liberty didn't run or attack. She collapsed against Ranger, and the two war dogs stood there, supporting each other, while everyone watched in amazement. How did you know that would work? Torres asked Ben. Because, Ben said, sometimes you need someone who understands your hurt to show you how to heal. That night they brought Liberty back to Walter Chen's farm. She was skittish, fearful, but she followed Ranger everywhere, and where Ranger went, Ben went. Looks like you got two partners now, Walter said with a smile, but Ben was worried about something else. Mr. Torres, you said there were 12 stolen dogs. We found Liberty. Where are the others? Torres pulled out a map. All over the country. Some might even be out of the country by now. Ben studied the map with the seriousness of a general planning a campaign. Then we need to find them all. Ben, that could take years. Then we better start now, Ben said firmly. What happened next would become known as Operation Homecoming. A 5-year-old boy, a wounded war dog, and a growing network of veterans, military personnel, and ordinary citizens working together to bring stolen heroes home. But none of them knew that Coleman, from his federal prison cell, had already made contact with his overseas buyers, or that those buyers were very unhappy about losing their investments, or that they had decided if they couldn't have the dogs, no one could. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. As Ben fell asleep that night, surrounded by two war dogs who would die to protect him, he didn't know that tomorrow would bring a challenge that would test every ounce of courage he'd found, or that Ranger would have to make a choice between his own life and the boy who'd saved him. But tonight, they were together. Tonight, they were safe. Tonight, a little boy and two warrior dogs proved that love really could conquer fear. Tomorrow, Ben whispered to both dogs, we save them all. Ranger and Liberty both moved closer to him, their warmth surrounding him like armor. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together, because that's what partners do. The call came at 3 a.m., jolting everyone awake. Walter Chen answered, his face going pale as he listened. They have one of the dogs, he said, hanging up. A German shepherd named Scout. They're going to execute him on a live stream in 6 hours unless we return all the rescued dogs. Ben sat up in bed, Ranger and Liberty instantly alert beside him. Execute him? Like, kill him? Emma tried to shield Ben from the harsh reality, but he pushed past her to look at the laptop Torres was opening. On the screen was a dark warehouse, and in the center, a German shepherd chained to a post. The dog was thin, scarred, but his eyes were still fierce. That's Scout, Torres said quietly. He saved 37 lives in Iraq. Detected more IEDs than any dog in his unit. A masked figure appeared on screen. You took something from us. Now, we take something from you. 6. 1 hours. Return all military dogs to the coordinates we're sending, or Scout dies, and he won't be the last. The stream ended, leaving them in stunned silence. We can't give them the dogs back, General Hayes said over the phone, but we can't let them kill Scout either. So we rescue him, Ben said simply. Ben, it's a trap, Torres explained. They want us to come. They'll be ready. Ben looked at Ranger, who was staring at the laptop screen where Scout had been. The German Shepherd was trembling, not with fear but with rage. He knew Scout. They'd served together. Ranger wants to save him, Ben said. Don't you, boy? Ranger barked once, sharp and clear. A 5-year-old and an injured dog can't mount a rescue operation, Emma said, though her voice lacked conviction. She'd seen what Ben and Ranger could do together. No, General Hayes said slowly, but they might be exactly what we need. She explained her plan. The kidnappers expected a military response. Soldiers, weapons, standard tactics. They wouldn't expect a child and his dog. It was insane, dangerous, and probably their only chance. Absolutely not, Emma said. I won't risk my son's life. Mom, Ben said quietly, if it was me chained up in that warehouse, Scout would come. Any of these dogs would. They don't leave anyone behind. That's what makes them heroes. You're 5 years old, and Ranger was dying in the mud. Age doesn't matter. Doing the right thing matters. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at this small boy who spoke with such conviction. Walter Chen cleared his throat. In Korea, we had a saying, sometimes the smallest key opens the biggest door. It's too dangerous, Emma insisted, but tears were streaming down her face because she knew her son was right. What if we made it safer? Torres suggested. Full backup, surveillance, the works. Ben and Ranger would just be the distraction. No, Ben said firmly. Not a distraction. The rescue team. He pulled out his notebook, the one where he'd been drawing maps and plans. Look, bad people always expect other bad people. They expect fighting and guns and scary things. They don't expect kindness. What are you suggesting? General Hayes asked. Ben started drawing as he talked. We go in like we're lost, a little kid and his dogs looking for help. While they're confused trying to figure out what to do with us, the real rescue happens. That's, Torres paused, actually brilliant. They won't shoot a child on live stream. It would destroy any support they have. But they might take him hostage, Emma pointed out. That's why Ranger and Liberty come too, Ben said. They'll protect me. Ranger moved closer to Ben, his body language clear. Anyone who wanted to hurt the boy would have to go through him first. Liberty mirrored his position on Ben's other side. The planning took 2 hours. Every detail had to be perfect. Ben would approach the warehouse with Ranger and Liberty, pretending to be lost. He'd have a hidden camera and microphone. The moment the kidnappers were distracted, a team would breach from the opposite side and rescue Scout. If anything goes wrong, Torres said, giving Ben a small panic button, you press this. We come in hot and get you out. Nothing will go wrong, Ben said with the confidence only a child could have. Scout needs us. The warehouse was in an industrial district an hour away. As they drove, Ben talked to Ranger and Liberty, explaining the plan. The dogs seemed to understand, their attention never wavering from his face. Remember, he told them, we have to act lost and scared at first. Can you do that? Liberty whined softly, practicing. Ranger tilted his head, his acting skills rustier, but willing to try. They parked 3 blocks away. Ben could see the warehouse in the distance, its windows dark except for one flickering light. Somewhere in there, Scout was waiting to die. Last chance to back out, Torres said. Ben shook his head. Heroes don't back out. He started walking, Ranger and Liberty flanking him. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. But his steps were steady. The warehouse door was partially open. Ben could hear voices inside, arguing about something. He took a deep breath and called out in his most innocent voice. Hello? Is anyone there? I'm lost. The voices stopped. Footsteps approached. A man appeared in the doorway, not masked this time. Ben recognized him from the photos Torres had shown him. Victor Kozlov, international arms dealer and Coleman's partner. What the hell? Victor stared at Ben and the dogs. How did a kid get here? I was walking my dogs and got lost, Ben said, making his voice small and scared. Can you help me call my mom? Victor looked suspicious, but then Liberty did something brilliant. She cowered behind Ben, whimpering, selling the act perfectly. Ranger followed her lead, tucking his tail and lowering his head. Just some kid with mutts, Victor called back to someone inside. What do we do? Bring him in, another voice said. Can't have witnesses. Ben's blood went cold, but he kept his expression innocent. As Victor grabbed his arm and pulled him inside, he saw Scout. The dog was worse than he had looked on camera, bleeding from several wounds, barely conscious. "Oh no!" Ben broke free and ran to Scout. "What happened to this doggy?" "Get away from there, kid," but Ben was already kneeling beside Scout, his hands gentle on the dog's head. Scout's eyes opened, confused. He could smell Ranger and Liberty, but that was impossible. They were supposed to be safe. "It's okay," Ben whispered. "We're here to take you home." That's when Victor noticed Ranger's service vest. His eyes widened. "That's not just any dog. That's the one from the news, the war dog that kid saved." "Which means," said another man, stepping from the shadows, "this is a trap." Guns appeared, pointed at Ben. But Ranger and Liberty had already moved, positioning themselves as shields. "Call your people," Victor demanded. "Tell them to back off, or the kid dies with the dog." Ben's hand moved toward the panic button, but then he saw something that changed everything. In the corner, barely visible, were 3 more cages. 3 more dogs, all military, all stolen. "You have more," he said, his voice no longer scared but angry. "You have more heroes locked up." "Smart kid," Victor said. "Too smart." That's when Scout did something extraordinary. Despite his injuries, despite the chain around his neck, he stood up. Blood dripped from his wounds, his legs shook, but he stood, and he howled. It wasn't a normal howl, it was a specific pattern. One Ranger and Liberty recognized. A call to arms, a battle cry. The 3 dogs in the cages responded, howling back, and suddenly the warehouse was filled with the sound of warrior dogs refusing to surrender. "Shut them up!" Victor shouted, but Ben had started howling too, his high child's voice mixing with the dogs. "You can't silence heroes!" he shouted. "Everyone's going to hear this!" The live stream was still running. Thousands of people were watching a 5-year-old boy stand with wounded war dogs against armed criminals. The comments were exploding. "Save them! Where is this? Someone call the police!" Victor realized his mistake too late. He'd been so focused on the trap that he'd forgotten about the camera. "Turn it off!" he ordered, but Ben had moved to stand directly in front of the camera. "My name is Ben Miller. I'm 5 years old. These men are hurting American hero dogs. Please help us." That's when the lights went out. In the darkness, Ben heard Ranger move. Not the careful movement of an injured dog, but the fluid motion of a trained warrior. Liberty was moving too, and suddenly the warehouse was full of snarls and screams. "The dogs are loose!" someone shouted. Ben felt teeth, gentle teeth, grab his jacket and pull him behind some crates. Ranger's teeth. The dog was protecting him in the dark. Flashlights came on, beams cutting through the darkness. Ben could see the 3 caged dogs were somehow free, their doors hanging open. Scout was still chained but fighting against his restraints with renewed energy. "How did they get out?" Victor demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. Through the broken skylight above, an elderly figure dropped down on a rope. Walter Chen, dressed in black tactical gear that looked like it hadn't been worn since Korea. "You forgot about the old soldier," he said, producing a gun that looked even older than him, but perfectly maintained. "Now, let's even these odds." The warehouse erupted into chaos. The freed military dogs, a Labrador named Honor, a Belgian Malinois named Valor, and another German Shepherd named Duty, knew exactly what to do. They'd been trained for combat, and they moved like a unit, coordinating their attacks. Victor tried to run, but Liberty cut him off, her teeth bared. One of his men raised a gun toward Ben, but Ranger hit him like a missile, all 90 pounds of protective fury. "Ben, the chain!" Walter called out. Ben understood. While everyone was fighting, he ran to Scout. The chain was thick, but there was a weak link where it connected to the post. Ben pulled with all his 5-year-old might. "Come on," he grunted. "Break!" Scout added his strength, pulling from the other side. The link stretched, bent, and finally snapped. Scout was free. The German Shepherd looked at Ben for a moment, and Ben saw something he'd seen in Ranger's eyes that first day. Recognition of kindness in a world of cruelty. Then Scout joined the fight. "Fall back!" Victor shouted to his remaining men. But as they reached the exit, lights blazed outside. Police cars, military vehicles, even news vans had surrounded the warehouse. "This is General Hayes," a voice boomed through a megaphone. "You're surrounded. Release the boy and the dogs and surrender peacefully. Victor grabbed Ben, using him as a human shield. I walk out of here, or the kid gets hurt. Ranger, Liberty, Scout, Honor, Valor, and Duty formed a circle around them, closing in slowly. Call them off! Victor demanded, his gun pressed to Ben's head. Ben felt the cold metal against his skin, but he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. You know what makes them heroes? He asked Victor quietly. Shut up! They don't fight because they hate what's in front of them, Ben continued. They fight because they love what's behind them. And right now, all they see is someone threatening what they love. I said shut! Victor never finished. Scout moved first, biting the hand holding the gun. Ranger went for the legs. Liberty grabbed Victor's jacket, pulling him off balance. In seconds, the arms dealer was on the ground, disarmed and defeated by the very dogs he'd tried to destroy. Ben stood in the middle of the hero dogs, all of them pressing close to him, checking if he was okay. We did it, he whispered. We saved everyone. The warehouse doors burst open. Police and soldiers flooded in, but they stopped when they saw the scene. A small boy surrounded by 6 war dogs, all of them protecting him while keeping the criminals pinned down. Emma rushed in behind them. Ben! He ran to her, and she scooped him up, sobbing. Don't you ever do something like that again? But Mom, we saved them all. General Hayes approached, her expression a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Ben Miller, what you did today was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Sometimes those are the same thing, Ben said, wisdom beyond his years showing through. Yes, the general agreed. Sometimes they are. The aftermath was swift. Victor and his men were arrested on federal charges that would keep them in prison for life. The live stream had been watched by over 1 million people, all of them witnesses to both the cruelty and the heroism. But Ben was focused on something else. The dogs need medical attention. Dr. Webb had arrived with a mobile veterinary unit. As he examined each dog, he shook his head in amazement. They're all injured but fighting through it. They knew they had a job to do. They knew Ben needed them, Torres corrected. That's different. As the dogs were treated, their stories emerged. Honor had been sold to a drug cartel, but escaped. Valor had been forced to fight in underground rings. Duty had been kept in a laboratory, experimented on, to test his detection abilities. They've all been through hell, Doctor, Webb said. Recovery will take time. We have time, Ben said firmly. And we have room at Mr. Chen's farm. Walter laughed. Kid, you're going to turn my farm into a dog sanctuary. Is that bad? No, Walter said, ruffling Ben's hair. It's perfect. Over the next weeks, the story exploded across media. The boy who saved the heroes became international news. Donations poured in, not just money, but offers of help from veterinarians, trainers, and families willing to adopt the rescued dogs once they recovered. But Ben wasn't done. At a press conference organized by General Hayes, Ben stood at the podium, on a box so he could reach the microphone, and spoke to the world. These dogs gave everything for us, he said, his young voice clear and strong. They detected bombs, saved soldiers, protected innocent people. And when they needed us, we almost failed them. The room was silent, hanging on every word. But we didn't fail because people cared. Mr. Chen cared, Dr. Webb cared, Captain Torres and General Hayes cared, and all of you watching cared. He paused, looking at Ranger who sat beside the podium. There are more dogs out there. Not just military dogs, but all dogs who need help. They can't speak for themselves. They can't ask for help. So, we have to be their voice. The applause was deafening, but Ben wasn't finished. I'm starting something called the Hero Paws Foundation. We're going to find every missing military dog and bring them home. And we're going to make sure no hero ever gets left behind again. Within a month, Hero Paws had raised $3 million. Within 6 months, they'd rescued 47 military dogs from various situations. Within a year, Ben's simple idea had become a national movement. But the most important moment came on a quiet afternoon at Walter Chen's farm, which had officially become the Hero Paws Rehabilitation Center. Ben was sitting in the field with Ranger, Liberty, Scout, Honor, Valor, and Duty. All of them had recovered, though they bore scars. All of them had found peace. You know what? Ben said to them. We make a pretty good team. Ranger woofed in agreement, his tail wagging. His eyes, one blue, one brown, were clear now, no longer clouded with pain. "Ben," Emma called, "there's someone here to see you." A car had pulled up, and out stepped a young soldier on crutches. Behind him, his parents helped him walk toward Ben. "You're Ben Miller?" the soldier asked. "Yes, sir." The soldier's eyes filled with tears. "Scout saved my life in Iraq, detected an IED that would have killed our entire squad. I thought I'd never see him again." Scout had stood up, his whole body trembling with recognition. He took a tentative step toward the soldier, then another, then broke into a run. The reunion was everything. The soldier falling to his knees, Scout covering his face with kisses, both of them crying in their own ways. "Thank you," the soldier's mother said to Ben. "Thank you for bringing him home." "I didn't do it alone," Ben said, gesturing to all the dogs. "We did it together." As the sun set over the farm, Ben stood surrounded by heroes, both human and canine. He was still just 5 years old, almost 6 now, but he'd learned something important. "Heroes aren't just the ones who fight," he said to a reporter who'd come to do a follow-up story. "Heroes are the ones who care, the ones who stop when everyone else walks by, the ones who see hurt and try to help." "That's very wise for someone so young," the reporter said. Ben shrugged. "Ranger taught me. The first day I met him, everyone said he was dangerous. But he wasn't dangerous. He was just hurt. And when you help hurt things heal, they become the strongest, bravest, most loyal friends you could ever have." The reporter turned to her camera. "And there you have it, folks. Sometimes the smallest heroes teach us the biggest lessons." That night, as Ben lay in bed with Ranger on one side and Liberty on the other, his mom had given up trying to keep them out of his room. He whispered, "We did good, didn't we?" Ranger placed his paw on Ben's hand, their signature move, the one that had started it all. "Tomorrow, we save more?" Ben asked. Ranger woofed softly, carefully so as not to wake Emma. "Good," Ben said, closing his eyes, "because heroes never stop helping." 2 years passed. Ben was 7 now, more confident but still kind. The Hero Paws Foundation had become a national organization with chapters in every state. Military dogs were being tracked, protected, and honored like never before. Coleman, from his federal prison cell, had tried one last time to destroy what Ben had built. He'd hired a lawyer, claimed the dogs were property, not heroes. The trial had been a sensation. Ben had testified, simply and honestly. If someone saves lives, they're a hero. It doesn't matter if they have 2 legs or 4. Heroes deserve respect. The judge had agreed. A new law was passed, the Ben and Ranger Act, making it a federal crime to abuse, abandon, or traffic military service animals. But the biggest change was in Ben himself. The shy, lonely boy who'd found a dying dog in the rain had become a voice for the voiceless. He spoke at schools, military bases, even Congress. "Every dog has a story," he would say. "Every one of them deserves a chance." And Ranger? Ranger had become more than just a rescued dog. He'd become a symbol. His image, standing proud despite his scars, was on billboards, in commercials, on t-shirts that raised money for Hero Paws. But to Ben, he was still just Ranger, his best friend, his partner, his hero. On the 2nd anniversary of finding Ranger, they returned to that parking lot behind the old factory. It had been transformed into a memorial park, Second Chances Park, with a statue of a boy kneeling beside a fallen dog. "That's us," Ben said to Ranger. Ranger woofed, his tail wagging. "But we're not fallen anymore, are we?" Ben asked. "We got back up." As they stood there, people began arriving. Veterans with their rescued dogs, families who'd adopted military animals, children who'd been inspired by Ben's story to help animals in their own communities. Soon the park was full, hundreds of people and dogs, all connected by a simple act of kindness from a 5-year-old boy who'd refused to walk away. General Hayes took the microphone. 2 years ago, Ben Miller taught us something important. He taught us that heroes come in all forms. That courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right despite your fear. She paused, looking at Ben and Ranger. But most importantly, he taught us that one person, even a small person, can make a difference. Ben didn't just save Ranger. He saved Scout, Liberty, Honor, Valor, Duty, and dozens of others. He changed laws, changed minds, changed hearts. The crowd applauded, but Ben wasn't paying attention. He was watching a woman at the edge of the park, holding the leash of a skinny, scared-looking dog. He walked over to her. "Is your dog okay?" The woman had tears in her eyes. I just rescued him. He was abandoned. I saw your story and thought, maybe all he needs is a chance." Ben knelt beside the trembling dog, his movements slow and gentle, just like that first day with Ranger. "Hi there," he whispered. "You're safe now." The dog's tail gave the tiniest wag. "See," Ben told the woman, "he's already getting better." Love works fast. As the celebration continued around them, Ben sat with the new rescue, showing the woman what Ranger had taught him about patience, kindness, and trust. "The thing about saving dogs," Ben explained, "is that they end up saving you right back." Ranger watched from nearby, his eyes proud. His boy had learned well. As the sun set over Second Chances Park, Ben stood to address the crowd one more time. "People ask me all the time why I helped Ranger that first day. The truth is, I don't know. I just heard him crying and couldn't walk away." He paused, looking at all the faces, human and canine, watching him. "But now I know that was the most important decision I ever made. Not just because I saved Ranger, but because Ranger taught me how to be brave, how to stand up for what's right, how to be a hero." He looked down at Ranger, who was watching him with those mismatched eyes full of love. "So, if you see someone who needs help, human or animal, don't walk away. Stop. Help. Be the hero they need. Because you never know. That one act of kindness might change the whole world." The crowd erupted in applause, but Ben had one more thing to say. "And remember, heroes aren't born. They're made. Made by choices. Made by kindness. Made by refusing to give up on each other." He knelt beside Ranger, wrapping his arms around the dog's neck. "We all have a hero inside us," Ben whispered into the microphone. "Sometimes it just takes another hero to show us how to let it out." As the event ended and people began to leave, each person seemed to walk a little taller, hold their dogs a little closer, look at the world with a little more hope. A reporter approached Ben for one final question. "Ben, what's next for you and Ranger?" Ben grinned, that same determined smile he'd had at 5 years old. "Tomorrow, we start looking for the next dog who needs saving, and the next one, and the next one. You're never going to stop, are you?" Ben looked at Ranger, then at Liberty, Scout, and all the other dogs who'd become part of their family. "Heroes never stop," he said simply. "That's what makes them heroes." As they walked home together, a boy and his dog who'd saved each other, Ben made a promise to himself, and to every abandoned, abused, forgotten animal out there. "We're coming for you," he whispered to the wind. "All of you, no hero left behind, ever." Ranger barked once, sharp and clear, a sound that carried across the park, across the town, across the hearts of everyone who heard it. It was more than a bark. It was a battle cry, a promise, a declaration that as long as there were heroes like Ben and Ranger in the world, there would always be hope. And somewhere, in shelters and streets and dark places across the country, abandoned dogs lifted their heads, as if they'd heard that bark, as if they knew that somewhere, someone was coming for them. Someone who wouldn't walk away. Someone who would see past their scars to their souls. Someone who would call them what they really were, heroes waiting to be found. The story of Ben and Ranger had become more than just a tale of a boy and his dog. It had become a movement, a mission, a message to the world. Every life matters. Every hero deserves saving. And sometimes, the smallest hands can lift the heaviest hearts. If this story touched your heart, if Ben and Ranger's journey made you believe in the power of kindness, then please, hit that like button right now. Share this story with everyone you know, because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it. Someone needs to know that heroes come in all sizes, that second chances are real, and that one act of kindness can change everything. Comment below and tell us about a time when you helped an animal in need, or when an animal helped you. Where are you watching from? Has this story inspired you to check your local shelter, to give a forgotten hero a second chance? And please subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. Together, we can make sure no hero ever gets left behind again. Remember Ben's words. Heroes aren't born. They're made. Made by choices. Made by kindness. Made by refusing to give up on each other. Today you can choose to be a hero. Start small, start local, start now. Because somewhere, a ranger is waiting for their Ben. And that Ben could be you. Like, share, comment, subscribe. But most importantly, act. Be the hero someone desperately needs. The world is waiting for your kindness. Don't make it wait any longer.